Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am DieHard 3.75 and this video is going to be about my three favorite 118 375 toy lines of 2024. I've also sprinkled in a couple of my other favorites just to kind of spice it up. So let me know what you think of my list in the comments below and leave your list too. Let's start a discussion. I'd like to see what you guys think are the best or your favorites of this year. Okay, so let's start off with my favorite army builders of 2024. I couldn't nail it down to just one figure, and it is my list, and I get to make the rules, so I picked two this time. And I also broke another little rule. This is the Stormtrooper, the VC-231, and although he did come out this year, he is a reissue of a 2022 figure. But he did come out this year, this one, and so I put him in the list because he is just a great figure. So we've got the Hasbro Vintage Collection Stormtrooper, and we've got the Toys Alliance Annex 2179 Scapegoat. I couldn't pick one over the other. I love them both. I have about 10 or 12 of these, and I have about 7 or 8 of these. These are both figures that if I can afford it and I find them, I will get them. This one's a bit tougher to get because he's really only online. But this figure here, you might find him in Walmart, but I know he's on Walmart.com now. He's on Amazon. He's at a lot of retailers. This guy you'll find on Pia Club. But I love them both. They're great figures, highly versatile army builders. Let's start with the Stormtrooper. Iconic Star Wars Stormtrooper. I always feel like this should be an evergreen figure. There should be at least one Stormtrooper in every wave and every pack, I feel like, and it will always sell. I wish Hasbro would clue into that, because when I was looking for this figure, this would be the only one of the wave missing, and they were 2 to a case, I think. Luckily, they got easier to find online for the regular retail price, but I feel like this figure should always be out. It should always be available. It's such a good figure. Highly articulated, all the modern articulation that you need with the rocker ankles, and the still got a little bit of the older style ball hinged hips, but they still work really well. What really puts this figure over the top is that they finally re-engineered the holster there for the blaster, and it's perfect. If you guys have any experience with the old Stormies, a lot of times you couldn't even get the blaster in the holster. The holster was flat. It might have been too hard of plastic. If you got it in, the blaster would stick out from the inside because it wasn't fully molded like this, like all the way around. And this solves all those problems. It's a nice soft plastic. It doesn't get in the way. The blaster fits perfect. He could still sit down if he needs to. You got your New Hope Stormtrooper. He's perfect. One of my favorite army builders of the year. Let's talk about the Scapegoat now. Love this paint job, man. Love this paint job. I love that he is a Toys Alliance figure, but he's smaller. He's a lot smaller than most Toys Alliance Acid Rain, Annex 2179 figures. So he scales really well with Star Wars stuff. But I love the paint job, all the weathering. You get all the articulation, of a super highly articulated modern figure, because it is Acid Rain, is Toys Alliance. Comes with 3 weapons. He comes with this folding rifle. Very cool. And he also comes with these 2 matching pistols that he can carry on each thigh in holsters. One of the added features of this figure is the fact that you can take out this pin here in the back, and this can be replaced with an LED. And they tell you when you open up this figure like what the LED is. It's readily available on Amazon. It comes in many different colors, and you could insert that there and it will illuminate this orange translucent helmet here. So just a solid figure. These two are not only my favorite army builders of the year, but they're two of my favorite figures in general of the year. This list is about my favorite lines, and this is happens to be my favorite army builders. But if I did a top 10 of the year, these two would find their way in. So those are my two favorite army builders of the year. What do you think? Okay, starting off the list at number 3, dropping one spot from number 2 last year to number 3 this year, is the Hasbro Star Wars The Vintage Collection. Now, I knew the Vintage Collection was going to be on the list, but I couldn't place them any higher. Competition was really fierce this year, guys. We had a lot of good lines, and we'll talk more about some of those lines and when I get to the runner-up lines portion of this video. But Star Wars The Vintage Collection, they dropped one, but that's not to say that it wasn't a great year. It was. It can always be improved. It really can. And here is just a kind of a selection of some of the figures that were standouts to me. Not all of them. The Zeb is a great figure. Kanan. I think the Rebels figures in particular are really good. I love this Count Dooku. Jod Nawood, one of the newer figures. That's a really good, really fun figure. And I think this is May from Acolyte, which, even if you don't like the show, this is a really good little figure. Why Vintage Collection at number 3 when there's so many other good lines out there? It's kind of because of the 4 elements that you have to have, right, at 118, which makes the 118/375 scale the greatest, right? In our opinion. That's why I do this channel. That's probably why you're watching it, because you collect this scale. You've got to have 4 things, right? You have to have great figures, ships, right? This year we got the E-Wing. The Ghost is inbound as I make this video. So we got ships this year. Creatures, the return of creatures. We got the Blurg, and they've pipelined, I think it's the Howler, the wolf dog from Ahsoka next year. So the return of creatures. And then we got playsets. We ended up getting the Moff Gideon's Hallway. We've got the Armorer's Forge here. They've, besides the Cantina HasLab, we also are getting the Streets of Tatooine playset, or, diorama. So you got the 4 things: figures, playsets, ships, and creatures. This is the only line at 118/375 doing all 4 of those things. Name the line. Acid Rain is doing figures and mechs, so figures and vehicles. Roboskull, they did figures and a ship. No creatures though, no play sets. No play sets for Acid Rain, no play sets for Joy Toy. None of them can actually check all 4 of those boxes except the Star Wars Vintage Collection. And I know a lot of you guys, if you're world builders, you take your Joy Toy, you take your Acid Rain, you take your Roboskull, and you put them, if it's not a playset or a dio that you made yourself, into these Star Wars ships and these playsets, and they ride these creatures. So the Star Wars Vintage Collection, it means, it carries a lot of weight. And getting the E-Wing this year, Ghost is inbound, like I said, the promise of more creatures, the promise of more playsets. It's great. It's a great year. Figure-wise, and I account for all those things. The line isn't just figures, right? The line is everything included in the line, and all those things are included in the line. But they're figures that when they really do well is when they do these brand new, all new sculpts, all new articulation, when they're not just, new face printing or new paint deco on an old figure from 10 years ago with swivel hips, and no ankles. When they do them brand new like these 4 here, they're excellent. And like I said, this is just a sampling of some of those really good ones. There was a lot this year. But this is my number 3 line of 2024. Let me know what you think about the Star Wars Vintage Collection in the comments below. Okay, and now keeping in line with my video from last year, I wanted to do a little spotlight on my favorite line that seems to have kind of gone away. I'm not quite sure what happened to it. Last year, the Joy Toy Dark Sources Jang Hu was my number 3 favorite line of the year. And this year, they really slowed down production. I think we probably got 15 to 20 figures last year. A horse. This year, from my estimation, my count, I think we only got 2 figures. This heavy cavalryman, there was a heavy cavalryman archer, and then they reissued the horse in different colors. I think there's a white one and there's a black one and maybe another shade of brown now. But they seem to have really taken their foot off the gas, Joy Toy has, with this line, and I'm really disappointed. It's a great line, guys. If you haven't tried any of the figures from this line, you are missing out. This is a great line. I feel like Joy Toy probably is, they're still doing fantasy, but it seems like the strife stuff, the Roman gladiators and the legionnaires has kind of taken their fantasy realm. And these Jang Hu ones have kind of been put, by the wayside, and it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. As someone, I have almost everyone. I think there's 2 that I don't have, and I don't have the other version, the other colors of the horse. I've got 2 of these. And I did do a video on this last year too, this horse, and then I did a video on this guy this year. But this is my favorite line that's just not around really anymore. They're not really making any. Hopefully it's just a pause and it's not a complete an abandonment. I mean, maybe the sales weren't good. Maybe Joy Toy just decided to go in another direction with those strife figures. But I miss this line. It's a great line. If you're listening out there, Joy Toy, please make more Jang Hu Dark Sources figures. I love these figures. All of them are so good. And that is my favorite line of 2024 that disappeared. Okay, and here is my number 2 favorite line of 2024. We've got the Fresh Monkey Fiction Eagle Force, or should I say Fresh Monkey Fiction from the world of Eagle Force, because now we've got Eagle Force versus Riot. We've got the Operation Monster Force, and we've got the blade cuts both ways. I did do a video recently on the Goblin and Savitar. They are not here in this shot right here. These are a lot of the other figures that I didn't do videos on. I did open this guy in a random opening video, but I didn't do any videos on these guys, and I should have. I got so excited with this line when I finally got these figures, because these were, from Big Bad Toy Store. They were pre-ordered a long time ago, I guess over a year ago probably, and they finally came through, and they're excellent figures all around. That's why they're my number 2. I love these figures. Before the highest started doing the Joes, this really scratched that itch that I had for G.I. Joe and like modern military figures. I know that Joy Toy does modern figures, military figures, but these are a bit different. These feel more like 25th anniversary or 50th anniversary Joes, but of course brought up to modern sensibilities, and articulation, sculpt, paint. These are great figures. They're really hard to get. It sounds like there's a pre-order coming early next year. So if you're watching this, or you're watching my channel, I'll definitely let you know when it comes out, because I'm all in on this line. There was so many figures that hit this year. I think it was 2 or 3 waves that just kind of showed up this year, and I got as many as I could, as many as I could afford. I did try to army squad build these Riot guys. I prefer to like the Riot figures or the bad guys more than the good guys. So I got a lot. You can see here, I got a lot of bad guys, and the Savitar and the Goblin are bad guys too. Um, but this is a great line. I'm really looking forward to what they come out with next. This, I can't say this line is underrated or people don't know about it, because they're all selling out now. It's hard to get these figures if you don't pre-order them. They just go, up and up in price. You can find them on eBay and AliExpress, but they're a lot more than the initial offering from Big Bad if you pre-order. And pre-ordering guarantees you your figures rather than trying to find them on the secondary market later. One of the great things about this line, though, is it is collector friendly. They give you, almost every figure came with 3 or 4 different head sculpts. They all came in collector friendly packaging. There's so much customizable ability to this line. It was endless, and all the parts, are swappable amongst themselves. This was one of my favorites here. I think this was the Kilowog, the wolf guy, but it came with this awesome robot head, or this robot head might have come with this guy, or this new version of Baron von Chill. I mean, just awesome figures, guys. I can't express how good they are. I mean, look at all the shading and painting in the creases of his uniform. So these guys got everything: accessories, articulation, paint apps, just everything you can need. Unfortunately, after my Star Wars vintage collection at number 3, there are no vehicles, though. There are no play sets. There are nothing like that. But that's okay. That's okay. I think this line is that good, and there's enough Joe stuff out there that you can pick up from the past that it justifies still being number 2 on my list. These are great figures. If Fresh Monkey Fiction keeps this up, I don't see this line ending anytime soon. And with it selling out how it is, I imagine hopefully it'll become more available as the minimum order quantity goes up. Because I have heard that some of these were 500 figures. That was it. So very hard to get them if you don't pre-order them. Well worth it. Well worth the wait. Well worth the price. And these figures, the World of Eagle Force, that's what I'll call this line, Fresh Monkey Fiction, is my number 2 favorite line of 2024. Let me know what you think below. Okay, so before I reveal my favorite 118-375 line of 2024, we've got some runners up and honorable mentions. All of these lines I'm about to show you are really good. I'm going to kind of break it down why they didn't make the list. Pretty simple stuff. Let's start with these guys. These are the Joy Toy Strife figures. These are the new fantasy line from Joy Toy. They've got some Romans. Looks like we're going to have some gladiators pretty soon. These are really good figures. They're fun. I haven't done a video on them yet, but I do like them a lot. Just not enough to crack the top 3. Basically, there's a couple reasons why. The first one is I know there's a female version that I don't have, but I have all of the males so far. So I think I have 7 of the males. And there's 2, so I think there's 9 total figures so far in this line. I have all the men, and it is basically, it's the same figure. They've changed the accessories and, some of the color on the armor, and the armor is a little bit different too, but it's basically the same figure. So there wasn't a lot of, it's just kind of one guy. Now it's a really highly articulated, it's a great buck. It's a great figure. Scallywags TV did a great breakdown on these figures without armor, sort of broke them down to be naked and kind of showed you all the poses that you can get out of them, which are quite a bit. But it just wasn't enough to kind of, I wasn't overly like, wow, this is just, game changing. Very good figures though. The other thing is until those gladiators come, You know, we really don't only have one side. We don't have any bad guys for these guys to fight. Um, they've kind of only given us one army or one group. You always have to have, you know, the opposing force. So for those two reasons, they are not on my top three list. Secondly, and these are in no particular order. This is kind of how I'm just reaching and picking them up. Is the Skeletron Roboskull figures. These figures are great figures. This is the newest modern figure that's come out that's not with the Roboskull. I do have both versions of the Roboskull now. You'll see the other version in my next haul, my December haul. Great figures, love them. But again, kind of like these Roman ones, essentially it's the same figure. Three different versions of the same figure. They almost have identical accessories. It's just the paint scheme. One has an extra head in the portal. You know, one's in silver, one's in black, one red, one's in green. Great figures though. And the Roboskull itself. So you got a vehicle and you've got a figure. But it wasn't just enough to say, oh, that's my favorite, one of my favorite lines, because there's really not much to the line. It's three figures. They're all the same, basically, and then a ship. So it just wasn't enough. They're all great though. But as a line, you know, if I was just, you know, maybe the Roboskull's the figure or the ship, the vehicle of the year, but this isn't the vehicle of the year video. This is a favorite lines of the year video. The next one is, I'm gonna lump these two together, and it's the Toys Alliance Acid Rain line. And just for to kind of keep it all together, the Annex 2170 Annex 21 line, Toys Alliance. These are three of the sort of the standouts, I think, of the year. The Eight Angel, Hidoshi, and the Red Crow Ashigara, I think is his name. And they are great, great figures. But I feel kind of like this was a bit of a down year, or not as good as last year for Toys Alliance. Especially Annex 2179. Last year they had so many good figures, and this year there wasn't that many. And they were mostly exclusives. I think this is the best one, my opinion, from what I got. And these are two of the Red Crows. This new sect or new army is pretty good. I really like them. But there was just something, it just seemed like a slower year for Toys Alliance, in my opinion. Still had some laurels, you know. And they reissued the Ankylo again, different colors. They reissued a lot of the same, the Bucks team, but in different colors. Just wasn't enough to like me go, that's one of my favorite lines this year. Solid line though. And then lastly is the G.I. Joe Hiya Toys figures. I love this line. I'm all in on this line. What's kept them from the list though is not all of them have been, you know, perfect. I haven't done a video on all of them, but the Flint and the Lady J, not really up to par, I think, especially because of the face sculpts, the portraits, that these figures that are face covered, like Beachhead here, Cobra Commander, Destro, Firefly, they seem to be a lot better than the unmasked versions. I think Hiya still really struggles with the portraits, and that's evident too in their Star Trek. I think out of the 3 Star Trek figures that I have, 2 of the 3 were pretty good. The Kirk's face was, I thought, a little bit off. And the other thing about the G.I. Joe line is they haven't given us any army builders yet. They have pre-ordered the Alley Viper, the Cobra Trooper, and the Crimson Viper, or the Crimson Guard, but we haven't got them yet. And if you look on the other side, they haven't given us a Joe army builder yet. So no Grunt. So you've got, you know, all these 10 named Joes against these army of Cobra. And I think the G.I. Joe line, they need to catch it up a little bit. We need an army builder on the good side. And I think I would not be surprised at all because of how much I've enjoyed these figures that they're in the top three next year. But I thought this offering that we got this year compared to those, the other two lines that I've already shown you guys, the Star Wars Vintage Collection and the Eagle Force stuff, these guys just barely missed the list. But I am almost sure they'll be on next year if things keep going the way they are. And this is my sort of my runners up honorable mentions: Toys Alliance Acid Rain, Annex 2179, the Robo Skull Skeletron figures, the Strife Joy Toy Roman Legion stuff, and my Hiya Toys G.I. Joes. Runner up for this year in no particular order. I would not be surprised at all if one of you guys thought that any one of these could be in your top three or even your favorite, because it's all preference, right? But in my opinion, these guys were my runners up. These guys are my honorable mentions. Okay, that's it. On to number one. And here is my number one line of 2024 in 317 118. We've got the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from Joy Toy. And this is probably not a surprise to anyone who has seen my last couple live streams where these came up, or if you actually have some of these. I would say that so far, to me, the Foot Soldiers and Shredder are actually the best figures, better than the Turtles. It's just my opinion, but I think they're actually a bit better than the Turtles themselves. My Turtles, and I still haven't finished the video for my overview of the Turtles. They are great, but I would say they're not perfect, but these three are. I also have the Bebop and Rocksteady. They're not here in this shot, but this line, it's just been great. I think, they've already pipelined and pre-ordered the April and the Splinter. So I think, I'm not a diehard Ninja Turtle fan. I love the Turtles, but I don't know the ins and outs like I do with Star Wars or G.I. Joe. But I think with April and Splinter and Bebop Rocksteady and these guys here, we nearly have all of the mains already. We just need Krang and Casey Jones, I think, and that's great. When a line, it comes right out. Here's all the mains. We almost got all the mains in probably a year and a half. We have all the mains already. What I don't want to see from this line, though, is I don't want to see them go down the silly route, and I don't think they will because Joy Toy doesn't do that. With their lines. And by silly route, I mean I don't want Bebop and Rocksteady in their Hawaiian outfits. I don't want the Turtles dressed up as a rock band or punk band or, in wrestling outfits. Some of the stuff that NECA does. I don't want that in my Turtles. As how do I say this? As childish as collecting action figures is, I don't want the silliness aspect of, I don't like the silliness. My toys are serious. I'm a serious person. I collect action figures. No, but really, I don't want them to go the route of the colorful stuff, this more silly, zany type stuff. That's why one of the reasons these are so great is they're done in a really realistic style, realistic shading. This is what I want from my Turtles. And I always wanted Turtles, as a kid. I always wanted Turtles. I had some of the original Turtles, but I actually remember being quite disappointed that they didn't fit in with any of my Joes or any of my Star Wars stuff. I actually had to get out the old He-Mans and Thundercats to kind of battle my Turtles because the sort of the articulation and the scale that they were in just didn't go with a lot of my other stuff. And hence why, I'm a 118 Star Wars and G.I. Joe guy because I thought those figures were a lot better. What else? Another thing that's made this my line of the year. This line I've never seen get as much attention with the toy YouTubers for 118 than it's the most I've ever seen. There were big channels like Displaying Model Behavior, the Chat Migos, Mad Hatter Reviews, Nostalgia Unboxed. The list can go on and on. They actually talked about these figures. They actually bought these figures. Those guys usually don't go under, 112 scale. And they go up all the way up to Mondo. They don't delve into our scale, but these were so good that it even pulled some of those guys in, and that's really good for our scale. It's good to put eyes back on our scale. It's good that those guys, one of the things that I've always heard the larger scales say, well, you can get better articulation, you can get more detail in it when it's bigger. And that's true. But I think Joy Toy here proves that it still can be done at 118. And the great thing about our scale is look how many figures I have standing here, and it takes up such a small amount of room. But we haven't given up anything when it comes to paint, articulation, sculpt. It's all here. So I'm really curious to see, how far this goes. It's funny, in a lot of those channels that I mentioned, there's a lot more. Those are just the first four that I thought of. They would say, oh, none of them had any experience with Joy Toy. They say, oh, the line, the 40K line, they do the 40K because they had never really, they wouldn't go down to this scale. So this really brought a lot of people, a lot of eyes. It's a really good thing for Joy Toy, but it's also good for us at 118. So I think, in particular, like I said, I think these three are actually better than the Turtles. Turtles are pretty good, though. They're pretty darn good. But what put these guys over the top was when I opened these two. Otherwise, I might have gone with Eagle Force as my number one line. But there's no denying how good these Ninja Turtle Joy Toy figures are. So that is my number one line of the year. I know I waffled on a bit. I think that's what you guys call it. I waffled on. But I think most of you, if you have any of these figures, will agree with me. This is, maybe the best line this year. All right, guys, so that's my list. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. I hope that you'll leave below in the comments what you think about my list. I'd love to see your guys' list. I'd love to know what your favorite figures were, what your favorite line was. What's your favorite line that's no longer around? I'm guessing some of you guys are going to say Fortnite. That's a big loss this year at the 118 375-inch scale. But I'm curious to know what you guys think of my list. Let's talk about it in the comments below. Look forward to talking to you. Bye.